I'm Julie Bartke with Session Update. On Tuesday morning, the Senate Tax Reform Division approved a bill that would extend the sales tax to clothing and other items and services, but lower the overall rate. We'd like to show you some of that debate.
There's been a lot of talk about wanting tax reform and tax simplification. And with respect to simplification, I think that the last 2.5 hours have demonstrated pretty clearly that not only are we not dramatically simplifying things, we may even be adding levels of complication. And of course, the governor and Democratic leaders have done backflips to try to indicate that they're, quote, taxing the rich, as opposed to taxing the, the regular folks like us, the middle class, and so on. So now we have a general sales tax increase or expansion, but this rebate program. And I don't even know how many people that would be eligible for it would even be aware that it exists, let alone knowing how to go about getting it back. Another level of complication, another level of bureaucracy, another level of a form to have to fill out or include something on a form that you're already filling out. We want reform, and in fact, to the chair of the committee, I indicated to her early on, 3 months ago when we started this process, that I believe some reforms are necessary, possibly some expansion of the base and lowering of the rates. Unfortunately, what the Democrats in the legislature have done, and the governor in particular, is they have simply taken tax increases and called it reform. So I want to be clear that, and I don't speak for anyone other than myself, I'm certainly open to tax reform and changing things, and many economists agree that certain kinds of expansion of the base and reducing rates make sense. Unfortunately, what the governor seems to be looking for, and the leadership of the legislature, is a big tax increase and more government, and then call that reform. I don't think that's what people believe to be reform, and that's unfortunate. Also, I find it interesting that if you, depending on exactly how you do the math in this tax bill, it only accounts for about 20% of the revenue that is going to be necessary in order to meet the targets that have been set by Democratic leadership in the Senate. After you take out the increase in the LGA and factor in the repeal of the health impact fee, this has about a net $400 million impact. Yet the governor and the House, the governor and the Senate, Democratic leadership, have set targets at about $2 billion of tax increases needed to cover the spending hole. So where's the other 1.6 coming from? I assume it'll come in some later provision to, quote, tax the rich. But even by the governor's own numbers, that's only going to cover about 1.1 billion of the necessary 1.6 to fill this hole. And then, of course, we have the leadership in the House of Representatives that wants about 2.4 billion in taxes so that they can increase overall spending by 3.4 billion. And the bottom line is as the governor learned when he attempted to propose the business-to-business taxes, all of these things end up falling on middle class, upper middle class, lower middle class, and poor tax-paying Minnesotans. So unfortunately, Madam Chair, I'm going to have to say that I would hope members would vote against this. As you know, Senator Rest, we've had some very good conversations about my desire for tax reform. More importantly, I think simplification. Unfortunately, I don't believe that this bill does that. I think in many instances, Senator Rest, you've done the best that you can under circumstances where you're being asked to raise a whole pile of revenue to increase government spending. So I would respectfully suggest that members vote against this bill, and thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Senator Thompson. And I just in one response, I think the corporate article and the sales tax article for the Senate bill, maybe unlike the bill in the other body, are not intended to provide revenue increases, but are intended to reduce the rates in these areas, and in the corporate area to reinvest the dollars in the business community, in the sales tax area, reducing the rate and expanding the base, even if you don't agree on what items or services are included in that. The one revenue raiser, very straightforwardly, is the tobacco tax increase, and we have to include it in that in this particular division report, because of the changes which we would consider reform with regard to the little cigars. But I think, you know, that's a debate that we'll continue to have, and I appreciate your contributions to it, and also Senator Gazelka's and Senator Ortman's. Senator Ortman, did you want to make a comment, and then we're going to vote?
I'll be very brief. No surprise that I'll be voting no. I don't think that if you reduce the sales tax rate to 6%, that's a very meaningful reform. I don't think that that's a meaningful difference to Minnesota families, especially when you turn around, on the other hand, and impose taxes on their clothing and over-the-counter drugs, their auto repair services, their household goods repair and maintenance. That's gonna hurt them more than it's going to help them. And I think that if the governor were to sign this bill, it would turn him into a hypocrite. He said that he would not increase a sales tax or impose new sales taxes on Minnesota families and small business owners when he wouldn't do it on the bigger businesses. And I hope this bill doesn't get to his desk and turn him into that hypocrite, because I think this is bad for business. I think this is bad for small businesses and families that are doing startup businesses in these very areas that will now have to impose taxes. I don't think this is helpful. I don't think it's reform. I don't think it's good policy. It's very complicated, and I hope that we will change direction in the tax committee.
Well, just as a comment, that a lot of the base broadening after we've reduced the rate falls on, you're quite right, some of it falls on individuals, some of it on, a lot of it, as a matter of fact, on businesses that we would not probably characterize as small businesses. So I think we tried to look at the items themselves, not necessarily in the base broadening after we've reduced the rate, not necessarily dividing out all the time about who would bear the burden of the base broadening, but also then again the reduction in the rate, and keeping in mind that it is $200 million in reductions of the impact on local government purchases, which gets rid of a distortion in the sales tax. Senator Skoye, do you want to comment, and then I'm going to call on you to make a motion.
And Madam Chair, you mentioned half of what I wanted to say, which was that we are eliminating that double taxation of the sales tax on local governments, and also eliminating sales tax on capital equipment purchases.
Again, the bill did pass that committee. Now, to follow it as it moves through the Senate, you can follow us on our Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter accounts.